else gone on for the deep end?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 5:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's good to see everyone here this evening, and as you know, our meetings are held in person and online. And so, welcome everyone. People can also view the meetings on burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or Comcast channel 16 or 859. The public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meeting webpage and in the council agenda packet. The first item on the agenda is our announcements, and we have one proclamation. Our announcements have to do with all of our upcoming meetings. Schedule of upcoming meetings, our regular council meetings in honor of the ultimate sacrifice, our three fallen heroes, Officer Paul Elmstrand, Officer Matt Ruge, and firefighter paramedic Adam Finseth, made on February 18th, 2024. We will not hold our regular meeting on February 18th in honor of our remembrance of that event. We will pause to memorialize them and their extraordinary courage and selflessness sacrifice. The meeting is rescheduled for Tuesday, February 25th at 5:30 p.m. We also have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 4th at 5:30 p.m. and a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, February 11th at 5:30 p.m. And I will read the proclamation from that side. And tonight is more of a solemn event for us, so there will not be pictures taken. I will read the proclamation and present them to the chiefs. Members of the community of Burnsville and our staff, a proclamation. Public Safety Memorial Day, February 18th, 2025. Whereas on February 18th, 2024, 3 heroes died in the line of duty to save the lives of 7 children while responding to a domestic situation. Whereas police officers Paul Elmstrand, police officer Matthew Ruge, and firefighter paramedic Adam Finseth all paid the ultimate sacrifice while keeping our community safe. And whereas this date, February 18th, will forever live on in Burnsville as a day of remembrance of our fallen heroes and their families. And whereas we will honor and salute our first responders for their bravery and commitment to keeping Burnsville safe. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Couts, Mayor of the City of Burnsville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim February 18th, 2025 to be Public Safety Memorial Day in the City of Burnsville in honor of our fallen. The city flag will be flown at half-mast, and the city will have a memorial displayed at City Hall on February 18th for the community to remember and pay their respects to our heroes. Proclaimed this 4th day of February, 2025. And if Police Chief Tanya Schwartz and Fire Chief BJ Jungman would come forward and receive the proclamation. Chiefs, thank you for your leadership. And thank you for everything that you do. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not in application form that will be coming before us at a future date. This is the time for you to speak. And I have here that Mrs. Joanne Paymar is first to speak, and then I have Mrs. Diane Maurer. So, Mrs. Paymar, the floor is yours. Either one of you. I just have your names.
Okay, I'll just take 2.5 minutes of your time. I have a story to tell you. I'm Joanne Paymar, and I moved into Burnsville in 1968, and I moved to Frontier Lane in 1973. I'm addressing the pickleball court in Allemagnet Park. I venture to guess that I probably have put more years into the Department of Natural Resources than anyone here, so it's been a long time. Anyway, the first Allemagnet Park encounter that summer was the bulldozers in the park. A group of neighbors went over to see why they were there, and they were assigned to construct an asphalt path to the water's edge. We literally sat on the bulldozers before we got them to stop. Then we fast forward, the city council went with us into the park, and they realized that our concerns about the motorcycle groups, drugs, runoff, everything was a concern. And when we went through the park and came up over a hill, there was a whole group of motorcycles. So that was the end of the asphalt path. Over the years, we've had to construct constant vigil for the park and the lake. Snowmobiles, fires in the park, people living in the park, a McDonald's with a large footprint proposed on the County 11 at the end of the lake, on and on. Twice I was part of a group of Burnsville citizens who challenged the building of a golf course in Terrace Oaks. It is a treasured oak savanna. It was voted down the first time, but came up again a few years later. Again, it was voted down. The decided vote was Liz Workman. Along with that vote came a moratorium for it not to come up again. I bring this up because golf courses are closing down all over, Orchard and Burnsville, and all over. I started many years ago volunteering in the parks, mainly buckthorn and garlic mustard. At the time, our DNR was not as established as it is now. Many times I was out there all by myself. Now we have a great department that oversees our nature areas, educates the public, and has done a phenomenal job with our lakeshore residents, with maintenance of the shoreline, rain gardens, you name it. I mainly volunteer on Allemagnet and Terrace Oaks, where I also walk and do my forest cleansing. We always thought the park was to be a nature area. Over the years, a maintenance shed, ball diamonds, a dog park, soccer field, and volleyball court have been added. Allemagnet has sacrificed enough. With pickleball, the peace one finds walking in the park and fishing and canoeing on the lake will be lost to the constant ping-ping of a pickleball game. I realize there needs to be more pickleball courts. Pickleball was a big part of my husband's life. He played till he was 82 years old. It just should not be in Allemagnet Park. I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Paymar. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, Council. Good to see you all again.
Yeah.
My name is Diana Mauer. I live at 13800 Frontier Lane, and I'm here to talk about pickleball at Alamagnet Park as well. And what I've put together is a document that has a lot of links to websites where I got my information so that you could look it up yourself if you wanted to follow through on anything I'm saying tonight. My take is that for fiscal reasons, Alamagnet is probably not the best location, well, is not the best location in Burnsville for the pickleball courts. The goal I hope we learn from the research that we've been doing is that the communities that have gone before us and have installed pickleball courts in their communities have, for lack of understanding the game, really incurred a huge financial cost for litigation, mitigation of courts that are in appropriate locations, and in often cases, they'll have to tear down the courts that they spent so much money putting in. And I'm hoping that we can avoid that similar fate. We need to find a place for pickleball, no doubt about it. And I hope that we can do that, but I would suggest that Alamagnet's not the right place. For example, for me, I want to make sure that I'm not giving you the impression that I don't want funds being made for investment in community spaces. So my husband and I have been at our home. We moved in 1998, and at the time after we moved in, there was a heart of the city was being proposed, and we had a canvasser come to our home and ask us to sign a petition against the installation, and we refused. We said, no, we understand the vision. This is something we need for community building, and that's the same as pickleball. It's a great community building activity. However, if it's placed in the wrong location, it can be a very divisive community, detriment to the community. One of the things that we need to keep in mind specifically about pickleball is choose the locations that require fewer environmental mitigations. Not only are there upfront costs we can avoid, but those mitigations will have to be tended to year after year so that they don't erode, and they'll have to be supported. Consider leveraging park features that will allow dual purpose, and I'm thinking specifically hockey rinks here, but there might be other facilities that I'm not aware of. Choose sites near airports, highways, or industrial use locations, and this is coming from the pickleball community themselves. The Kitchen is a pickleball community. The Kitchen, if you're not familiar with the game, is the location right in front of on either side of the net. It's called the Kitchen, and so that's why the name of the group. And they suggest that pickleball doesn't have a noise problem. It has a planning problem. Those particularly concerned with noises, they suggest, should seek areas that are mixed-use commercial or light industrial. Choose locations that are minimum to the risk of litigation. This is a real issue. And I would like to draw your attention to the map that I have on page 1. That is some hot spots that are where communities have installed pickleball courts only to have litigation and strife and injunctions proposed and had some court determinations where the pickleballs were closed down and they had to tear them out. So it's an expense we don't need. Choose locations that don't need noise barriers. What they've found so far, what they have are noise barriers that don't really work. The ones that are durable aren't necessarily advantageous for outdoor use. So not only do we have to install the barriers, then you have to take them down in the winter and you have to store them someplace and you have to repair them. So all that cost we could avoid if we have a reg location. And consider non-part options and avoid the whole problem altogether. While still providing pickleball courts. And here I'm thinking, land that we probably don't own right yet, but we could perhaps investigate, which would be parking lots, some spaces within the mall, things like that. Providing a small smattering of links here on the next page where there were litigations that cost the communities over thousands of dollars, and that's just not taxpayer dollars, and that's not just the neighbors that have brought the litigation actions against the cities. So that's something, again, we'd like to avoid. Secondly, I'd like to raise a question about the selection of Alamagnet. How did we get here where there is one main court one main park that we are determining is going to be our focus first? It's ranked as a 10 in our Park and Rec's initial assessment. But I'd like to tell you that she might not be as beautiful in this consideration as might think of it first. Because I see some concerns with the selection criteria. First, there are missing items. The first I would like to propose is Hallows Park because it is located near a industrial location. And but it is not a community park, it's more of a neighborhood park. So perhaps that would be one exception to our initial smaller subset of parks that we might want to consider. And again, one of the criteria should be rated on here is how near are the particular parks near industrial spaces, highways, and railroads, like Cliff Fen. In addition, what sound mitigation expenses are likely, more taxpayer dollars, as I've mentioned already, potential risk of neighbor or pickleball strife and lawsuits, that is not on the criteria there. And when I think about that, I think about how close it is to the neighborhoods, one, but also there's been a lot of concerns across the nation on parking lots, and also the number of neighbors that it would impact would have a higher risk then. And then the last criteria I think is missing is that it's near a lake, because that impacts the sound implications. The 500 feet limit, if the lake was in that 500 feet limit and its ability to amplify sounds, a different criteria would probably be in order. I would also like to propose that some of the criteria is not represented accurately. For example, when you look at the matrix that is there, Cliff Fen has no place for pickleball, but yet it's noted as having room for future expansion of courts. I think they might have missed that it actually has room for pickleball. The parking is one item on this matrix. I suggest it should be two, because do we have parking that's adequate for the addition of pickleball courts, or do we need to, which some are, or do we need to add additional parking? Should be different ratings. Also, the level of service. So we have two court areas right now, one in the northeast, one in the northwest. And when you look at the matrix, it seems to favor the southeast. Well, that is a possibility because it's further away. Wouldn't a central location also be favorable, where more Burnsville residents could have access to it rather than traveling down to another corner of the city? For what we see on this matrix too is what I believe might be some double counting unintentionally, but so we have earthworks, tree cleaning, and parking, but then we also have economy of site with installation without additional cost. So it seems like we're double dinging some parks or not. In addition, we have lighting. So having courts lit for evening play might not be recommended. The place in the US that has the largest number of pickleball courts per capita is Boise, Idaho. And Boise, right now, is having litigation where they are closing down the courts at 5 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. They're going around and they're locking them up. And they've locked them all day Tuesday and all day on Monday. Do we want to have our staff going around locking gates, and what signal does that send? Let's put it at a place where it can be open all the time. And to wrap up, criteria I don't think is weighted properly on here. They're all weighted equally. That's not how life works, right? If we were looking from a fiscal situation, we have distance from existing courts, again, how far could be weighted, proximity to natural resources and neighbors, again, nearer or farther. Instead of a location with the greatest access of the number of residents, that would have the highest ratings. And again, the environmental impact, because it's not just today dollars, it's tomorrow dollars as well. So I would just suggest that we have an opportunity to revisit the criteria in improving it by incorporating what we can learn from other communities who have already gone before us and learn from their lessons. Thank you for all your time. And I do appreciate the council's forbearance on hearing about this quite a bit, but also I do believe that you also have the fiscal best interest in heart. I just want to point out some things that those of us that are new to pickleball may not be aware of at the outset. So thank you again. For your
Mayor,
Thank you.
I actually do
Yeah.
have a question for her. Normally we don't,
Okay.
because this is going to be coming up later. However, the stress that you have placed over and over, both in the handout and in what you've been saying on legal action, are you giving us a notice of intent to do legal action? Because it does sound like that.
Let me be clear. There is no legal action that is pending at this time. I am just saying that over and over in all sorts of locations, that is what results when pickleball is not put in the proper location. And I'm trying to tell you that I can't speak for all the neighbors. I can speak for myself and my husband. We are across the street from Alamagnet. We are on the north side. We are on the corner of Frontier Lane and McAndrews.
McAndrews.
We won't hear it. But what I'm saying is that this is a strife that causes litigation, and I would hate for us to have that higher risk based on inappropriate location of them. Is that a little more helpful?
It really is coming across that this is a threat of litigation. Like that is how this is coming across. And I do appreciate that you don't mean for it to come across that way,
Okay.
but it is coming across very strongly that this is a notice of intent to do legal action. So I'm just trying to clarify that, because if that is like the direction we're headed, we're in a totally different ballgame, folks. Like, we're in a really different ballgame. And if that's not a path that we want to go down, and I really hope it isn't, like, this is a nudge in that direction. So I'm really hoping to avoid that, but I did want to clarify that, and thank you very much for that. I do
Sure.
appreciate that.
Sure, that's great. And
Yeah.
just to reiterate, there is nothing that I know of, and certainly my husband and I wouldn't be able to afford it, that is, however, I think one of the huge lessons I've learned from the research that I've done is it's rampant around the country. And it's a real risk. It's not intended to be a warning, but it's as a threat, but it's intended to be, we have to, as a community, we have to go carefully on it, because we don't want to upset people with their homes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in. One of the things that I do know is that we work together and we always get to resolution. Mrs. Paymar understands the work that we did with STOP, Save Terrace Oaks Park. That was a huge endeavor. And we had to move all of that those meetings downstairs because there were so many people. Because Burnsville cares about the environment. Burnsville cares about what we leave behind for our children. So I know that we will work together. And I don't fear that you all intend litigation in this regard. Because I know the people of Burnsville, that we work together and we'll get there. It's always a challenge, but we will get there. And so I thank you for your patience with the kind of process that we go through, but also appreciate the research that you do. And I do understand because I've talked to a lot of my colleagues. I was in Washington and I saw a lot of my colleagues from across the country talk to them about what their experiences are with regard to pickleball. And yes, I even talked to some of our neighbors around here and what went on. So I know what went on in Apple Valley. So I understand all of that. But we in Burnsville are going to do it differently. We're going to work together and we're going to get there. So thank you for all the things that you do and the research that you do. And we've been down this road fighting for the environment. And this is not the first time that we're doing this. And so, and tonight, I'm sure the folks from south of Burnsville, our rural area, are here because of the construction, and it's going to be on their minds as well. So we understand that in Burnsville. That's who we are. We care. So thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. We don't have anyone else to speak in this regard, but the next item on the agenda is additions to the final agenda, and this is for emergency items only. City Manager Lindberg, are there any emergency items to come before the council?
Nothing from staff, Mayor.
Members of the council? Okay, we will move on. The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on a consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item on a consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Mrs. Collins, anyone online?
No one online.
Okay. City Manager Lindberg, does staff want an item to be pulled?
Nothing from staff, Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the council, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Thank you so much. We now move on to the regular agenda. And the first item on the regular agenda is 5A. 5A is a public hearing. And this is a resolution ordering the improvements, approving the plans and specifications, and ordering advertisement for bids for the 2025 Street Improvement Project 25-101, 25-102, and 25-105. And presenting this evening is our city engineer, Mr. Logan Velasti. Mr. Velasti, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for having me. This past year in 2024, we completed the pavement management plan, which really is used as a guide for programming our street improvement projects. We just wanted to note that this proposed project is consistent with that plan. So looking at a high level, how we rate our pavements, we have a scoring system 1 through 100, and we rate all of our streets every 3 years with a third-party vendor. And you can see there, the higher the score, the better. Once pavement gets into the poor and critical condition, it's in need for improvements. So looking at our overall city street network here and the color coding to go along with those pavement conditions, you can see we have all of our project areas circled. And you can see a lot of those project areas are currently in poor and critical condition today. So looking at the improvement strategies that we typically employ, we have reconstruction, which is going to be full pavement replacement as well as full curb replacement. And then that is typically always paired with water main replacement, and then sanitary and storm sewer repairs as needed. Our reclamation is a full pavement replacement, and really the key difference with reclamation is we're leaving that curb and gutter system intact because we're not doing a full-scale water main replacement. And then our rehabilitation or mill and overlay, which is just removing and replacing that top layer of pavement. All these strategies also include reviewing and assessing the condition of our underground utilities, traffic signals. We look at the ability and the feasibility of adding multimodal elements in line with our complete streets policy, and then we will update any sidewalks that are not currently ADA compliant. And then it also is the trigger for tree removal if we have any sightline hindrances or anything of that nature, and then street light replacement as well. Here are our proposed 8 project areas for 2025. 4 of them are reclamation, so that's our Carriage area, Morgan, Rio Loma, and then Southwest Burnsville. With an asterisk on Southwest Burnsville, we were really evaluating 2 different methods there. We're also evaluating a rehabilitation for Southwest Burnsville. And then for our rehabilitations, we have the Abbott and Washburn cul-de-sacs off of Williams Drive, and then 2 different sections of Burnsville Parkway, east and west there, on kind of opposite ends of the city. Specific to Southwest Burnsville, so the pavement that we're looking at in this year's project areas, it's all in poor and critical condition. There was large-scale pavement maintenance required in 2024, so essentially large-scale patching efforts to ensure that the road was able to be plowed this previous winter, or the winter we're currently in. And then we also did, of note, we did a in-house paving operation in 2017 on Crest Lane, which kind of was a Band-Aid to get it to where it is today. But now that kind of in-house overlay is breaking up, it's really going to deteriorate rapidly. So that's why we are recommending it for improvement today. So looking at Crest Lane, you can see the aerial pictures in 2017, even there had already been a decent amount of patching done on that road. And then looking at just imagery from this past fall, you can see some of the fresh patchwork that was done on that overlay that was done in 2017. So that the Band-Aid that we did in 2017 is already starting to fail. Hence the need for a larger scale improvement. Same thing, a different area of Crest Lane. And then this is what Alcana Lane looks like today. So pretty significant pavement failure there. Valley View Road, again, significant pavement failure, and a few skim patches that you can see that have been done. Oriole Court, more of the same, significant patching that's already been done here. So as we met with the community last fall and again over the winter here, we received quite a bit of feedback and a desire to look into alternatives that would reduce the cost of the project and therefore the assessment. So one of those alternatives that we are recommending is a 2.5-inch mill and overlay and any needed base repairs while we do that. And effectively that would remove all of the pavement that's out there today and replace it in kind. So we estimate that total assessment would be around $4,200 per single family home. And that would be a 15 to 20 year pavement life before we're looking at programming future improvements. And then alternative 2, which is really the first alternative that we evaluated, is a full depth reclamation and putting back 4 inches of asphalt pavement. So that would match our citywide standards, and we also acknowledge that Southwest Burnsville is a unique area of the city. So the total assessment for that alternative 2, is $6,300, and we anticipate a 25 to 30 year pavement life span on that. So looking at kind of the city's process and the steps that involve council and community engagement, et cetera, this really all started last May when we began data collection and analysis. Council ordered the preliminary report last June, and then through June, really into the winter here, we're gathering information, developing preliminary plans, defining scope, meeting with the public, mailing construction notices, mailing open house invites, all of that good stuff. And then just this last December, council received the preliminary report and ordered the public hearing for tonight. In January, we mailed those public hearings that invited everyone to the meeting this evening. We also held a open house specific to Southwest Burnsville last week to solicit feedback regarding the alternatives that we just discussed. Tonight we have our public hearing. Over the next month or so, we'll finalize our plans and get ready for bidding. Then in approximately April, we would award a contract, order the assessment hearing, and mail notices for the assessment hearing. One caveat is that Southwest Burnsville is on a different policy and therefore a different assessment hearing schedule. Their assessment hearing would actually occur this fall after construction is completed. So all the other project areas, the assessment hearing is proposed for May. And then really May through October, we're looking at our construction phase for all of our projects. And then following construction, we mail out the post-construction survey where residents are invited to provide feedback on the project and on the levels of communication that we do. Looking at just an overview of all the communication we've done thus far and community engagement. We've done mass mailings, many open houses. I think there were 5 open houses specific to Williams Drive. We've attended Party on the Plaza events, emails and phone calls, and individual in-person meetings. The funding sources for the project include taxes, primarily from our infrastructure trust fund. We also utilize special assessments, and then our water, sewer, storm, and street lighting utility funds. For Burnsville Parkway and Williams Drive, we have municipal state aid funding that we will propose to utilize. And then for Williams Drive specifically, we have that LRIP grant from the state of Minnesota. Our special assessment methodology is based on footage, which is set back 30 feet from the property line. The single family properties are all assessed on a per unit basis. We assess for up to 40% of the street cost. We do not assess for utilities, at least 60% of the street costs, or any other work. For all projects except Southwest Burnsville, we have a 3-year average rate that we utilize. And then for Southwest Burnsville specifically, they are assessed based on actual costs. Looking at our single family rates for reclamation and rehabilitation this year, we are about $2,700 per single family unit for reclamation and just under $2,400 this year for rehabilitation. And then we also have our multifamily and commercial prices per foot. Here's kind of the breakdown for Southwest Burnsville specifically. So really showing we have 59 total units. You can see the total cost there and then how we came up with our assessment rate based on 40% of the street costs. $5.035 is the street and utility improvement policy for Southwest Burnsville. And again, we're assessing a per unit basis based on 40% of actual street construction costs. And that is the staff recommendation is alternate 1. For special assessment payments, they, for every project area except Southwest Burnsville, they're able to be prepaid by November 15th of 2025. If that does not happen, they will go automatically onto your property taxes over a period of years. And for the typical single family assessment that we are proposing, it'll be all over the 15 years with an interest rate of 5.5%. We are aware of a couple special circumstances. So the first one is the disabled veteran homestead valuation exclusion. That applies to property taxes. It does not apply to assessments. And then there's also the hardship assessment deferral, which is outlined by statute that for those that qualify, we cannot defer their assessments. Looking at a breakdown of costs, the total estimated cost today is just under 13 million. You can see about 30% of that is coming from our ITF, our Infrastructure Trust Fund. Another about a quarter of the project is coming from our municipal state aid funds. Just under, or right around 14% of the project would be paid for by special assessments, 13% from our water and sewer utility, 12% from that LRIP grant, and 7% from our storm utility fund. We do have a few exceptions from the policy that we are recommending tonight, so that staff is recommending. And I'm about to provide an overview of those today. So the first one is Mahoney Townhomes. I'll show you kind of a picture of where that is. So it's on the south side of Williams Drive, closer to Morgan and Oliver Avenue. They have common land that's adjacent to the Williams Drive project. So it's the common land is adjacent to the assessable frontage. We're recommending no assessment for these properties because they have limited visibility and no direct access to Williams Drive. It's classified as a multifamily property, but it really behaves and is
Single family.
more logically viewed as single-family homes, and it would be difficult to provide the benefit that would be required by statute. So, due to the nature of the assessment policy, the common land would lead the policy to say that this is multifamily and it should be assessed, but staff are recommending that this common land is really a result of the platting at the time, and that these properties are really behaving as single-family properties that should only be assessed from the streets that they receive direct access from. The next one is Burnham Wood Townhomes. It's a very similar situation where the policy would say that these properties are multifamily, but really they are functioning like single-family homes with common land surrounding them. So again, these are all rear yard frontage to Burnsville Parkway. It's really not even frontage, it's through a wooded area. So for the same reasons, staff are recommending to not assess the Burnham Wood Townhomes. Of note, Burnham Wood Drive is the public street which all of these properties receive their public access from.
And they're responsible for all of the streets within their association.
That is correct, everything that comes off of Burnham Wood Drive, yep.
Yeah.
We also have this parcel to the south of Burnsville Parkway East, just west of County Road 11. For this parcel specifically, due to it being undeveloped, we did an independent market benefit analysis, and that estimated that the actual benefit would only be approximately $10,000. So that is the staff recommendation, is reducing that $25,700 assessment down to $10,000. And then we have 3 larger lots off of Old County Road 34 that didn't fit in with the standard single-family properties around them. So we did a special benefit analysis for these properties as well, and it was varying between $8,000 and $12,000 as to what that special benefit analysis came out with. And what staff are recommending are a single per unit assessment for these 3 properties of approximately $8,600. And these are those 3 properties that you can see are technically single-family properties, but are obviously quite larger than the adjacent single-family properties. For Southwest Burnsville, that policy is specific and unique in the sense that it highlights what happens when there are larger parcels that can be subdivided. And what the policy allows for is a deferred assessment on that subdividable lot within your lot that would be deferred until development, or 15 years, whichever occurs first. So if no development occurs, then those deferred assessments would go away. There are a few parcels in Southwest Burnsville where this is going to apply. And they're all undeveloped parcels that are owned by adjoining property owners. So staff are recommending that these parcels all have this similar methodology applied, and we would apply deferred assessments to these parcels, and in the event that they are developed or built on, those deferred assessments would become active. Quick note on the Williams Drive and Judicial Road intersection. Williams Drive is, as I noted, part of the street improvement public hearing. The intersection itself meets signal warrants today. Its signal cost is estimated just under $400,000. The intersection is nearing the critical crash rate. And specific to the crashes at that intersection, 75% of them were angle crashes, which are a result of vehicles turning to or from Judicial Road. And then it is also a bike and pedestrian crossing point with the trail to the north and then the sidewalks running along Judicial Road to the south. Our recommendations are to hold the public hearing, accept the staff recommended policy deviations. Staff recommend alternative 1 for the Southwest Burnsville improvement method, and adopt the resolution ordering improvements, approving plans and specifications, and ordering advertisement for bids for the 2025 street improvement projects. I will stand for questions.
Members of the council, questions for Mr. Blasty?
Thanks for getting my road finished.
So stand
wasn't a
and be present for the public hearing. Yep. So I would probably go back to you, Mr. Blasty. This is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. And we have some folks who want to speak. And the first one that is on my list says Mr. Chuck Erickson. And Mr. Erickson from Brookview Drive. The floor is yours. Yeah. Good evening.
Thank you. Actually, I defer to Joe Gelhar because my signing is in support of his petition.
Okay.
So I urge you to have him go before me.
Okay, very good. And you live on Brookview and Mr. Gelhar is on Judicial.
Pardon me?
I said, you live on Brookview and
Yes.
Mr. Gelhar is on Judicial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I've traveled that area so
I
many
understand.
times.
Yeah, I understand. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Gelhar, the floor is yours. Good evening.
Good
And we
evening.
did get all of your information also, Mr. Gelhar.
Okay, that's what Logan had said earlier today. So my name is Joe Gelhar. I live on 13004 Judicial Road. I'm on the corner of Williams Drive and Judicial southwest corner. I've had a petition since last summer, I believe, that you've all received, trying to stop the stoplight on the corner and roundabout. It appears that the roundabout is taken out of the equation, so I appreciate you guys listening to that.
Yep.
And to my neighbors, because I'm representing some neighbors here too on this petition. So I'm just going to kind of briefly read through the letter that I sent in yesterday to Logan that he handed out. So as you may recall, I've sent to you.
It is in the record, so if you can
Oh.
summarize,
Oh,
that would
sure.
be great, because it's a very,
Yes,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
it's a long letter.
So
It's-
my concerns were, and Logan did address some of the costs. I was mistaken on the cost of the project. That was a project cost, not the stoplight cost. So he corrected that. I don't believe it was the intent of the city council on so many of the neighbors that I've talked to receiving mailings, not realizing what they were, throwing them away. A lot of people didn't realize that some of these issues were being discussed with the road reconstruction of Williams Drive. But the neighbors that I've talked to are not wanting a stoplight on that corner for the reasons that I've laid out. Safety issues, issues in front of my house, that type of things that were addressed in the letter. It's still our position that there's alternatives with the road. I mean, we agreed to most of the other things that are being discussed on the road, but the stoplight still isn't one of them. There's, I also sent in today an appraisal on my property because I believe my property is going to be negatively impacted, as will possibly some of the other neighbors. And I believe you have a copy of that too that was given. So the biggest concern is the rate of speed coming out of Savage, and that was kind of what we've talked about. You know, we put a stoplight on that corner, it's going to back traffic up, especially with an unregulated roundabout in Savage on McCall. In the mornings out there, the traffic is very extensive, 6:30 to 7 in the morning up till maybe 8:30 to 9. When you go further down to Morgan Avenue and County Road 5, you'll see sometimes the traffic's backed up to half mile back on Williams Drive. We anticipate that possibly will happen in front of my house, backing up over the bridge into Savage, creating another issue for people accessing Rose Bluff across on the north side, and Court Place, which is to the west of me. So there's a concern with that. The other concern is, I don't know how it's going to be approached if a stoplight does go there, is the crosswalk in front of my home. I can see that from my living room window. People do not stop at that crosswalk in there. Flashing lights or no flashing lights, I would guess half of them stop, half of them don't. There's a lot of people coming out of Rose Bluff using the center lane as a merge lane. There's not really proper, in our opinion, road signage on the Savage side coming into Burnsville, indicating that you are now entering a right turn lane. It's there on the Burnsville side, but people coming out of Savage don't see that. And then you get into Savage, Scott County side, there's no speed limit sign. It's almost a mile back before there's even a speed limit sign going east on McCall. So people don't know the speed limits, but I can tell you people coming over that bridge aren't doing 40 miles an hour, you know, and it's a 45 on Savage, it's a 40 on ours, proposed to turn into 35. After talking to one of the police sergeants at one of the meetings, he said they're not allowed to ticket people for the courts unless they're doing 11 over the speed limit. So if there's a safety issue there and the officers aren't allowed to ticket people, how are we going to remedy that? That's what I've been told. So I don't know if that's correct, but that's what one of the officers told me. So you have a speed issue happening there that one can't be enforced or isn't enforced just because of that issue. The other things I think are going to be addressed with the center medians and stuff, with people passing in that center lane, which is also a safety issue. So I think some of your proposals are going to address the medians and that type of stuff going through there. There was an email that I did get from Logan here discussing some of the crashes in the area, and it shows that the crashes at the intersections of Williams Drive and County 5 is the highest one, with 29 accidents from the 2018 to 23 study. Williams and Morgan are the next one at 18, and then it goes back to Williams and Judicial at 8, but it also has 8 at Williams Drive and Penn Avenue, with a couple more incidents there. Again, none of them being fatalities. I'm assuming that most of the accidents at Judicial and Williams are people turning out of Judicial going west on Williams towards Savage and getting clipped from the high rate of speed of vehicles coming out of Savage. How can that be handled? Again, I think it's back to speed control and patrolling, potentially in there. I know there's shortages of officers, I understand that, but there's still some issues that I quit calling in speed complaints in Williams a couple of years ago. I used to see a lot more patrols out there. They used to sit at St. James Church patrolling, and I've offered them to sit in my driveway to shoot radar if they want to. They're more than welcome to sit there. But I haven't seen a lot of officers patrolling that either over the last couple of years as it had been in the past. Another part of the study that I had mentioned was this was done from 2018 to 2023. 2022 and 2023, we also had a lot of excess traffic diverted up on Williams Drive because of the Highway 13 construction, which again is going to happen in 26, 27, 28. So we're going to be in for a lot more traffic after the road's redone. again, there's not much we can do with that other than potentially enforce it. The other issue we had was there's a lot of heavyweight traffic that goes down there with trucks, semis, dump trucks and stuff. And from what Logan had said before, that road really isn't rated for tonnage. It'd be nice to see some enforcement on there, because if you're spending this kind of money to redo Williams Drive, I'd hate to see in 2 or 3 years this heavy traffic that's not really allowed on there anyway, to bust up this road again, especially with the assessments and stuff some of the people are getting on the road. We can talk more about the other issue with the privacy fence and stuff that I brought up with Logan. I can discuss that outside of the meeting if that's
Yeah,
more of
you can have a
protocol.
yeah.
I can talk with him. I've already had a meeting last fall too with him and stuff, but those are my main concerns. I mean, and of the neighbors out there, just with the safety of stuff, but we don't feel that a stoplight on that one, even though it might say it's warranted, is the practical thing to do there. I think with the road speed and some of the other things that are proposed there are going to suffice some of the issues at that intersection, or at least I would hope so.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
thank you for your time.
Thank
If
you
there's any
for coming
questions
in.
I can answer,
Yeah.
otherwise I could be in touch with Logan.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right.
And I know that there have been a lot of meetings because I was out at St. James when we had a convening of all of the neighbors.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately, I wasn't
Mayor
able to make
Janet
it.
Williams was there, and I was there, and we had officers both from Savage and from Burnsville there. So there
That's
was
the
a
one meeting
good-
I missed.
Pardon me?
That's the one meeting I missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because we were wondering.
Yeah, no, I had some things come up personally. but I
Mayor
couldn't make it
Williams and
that
I,
one.
so because, yeah.
And
but-
they're aware of it too, as you know, I have
Oh,
sent it to. I
absolutely,
have it
because
sent
we
to
work very
Savage.
well together with Savage. We have a
Okay.
great partnership, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So I
we'll-
hope that Savage and Scott County can come on board with some of this and at least listen to this, because it is affecting Burnsville and the traffic flow in Burnsville.
They understand,
Okay,
and our city managers talk to each other.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if Mr. Erickson, you have anything else to add to that? I think you're also in opposition to the stoplight, and I think
am.
that, yeah, so, I don't know what else you can add.
Well, I have been living same house on Brookview Drive for 46 years. And the area that Joe was talking about, I go west on Brookview to Judicial, and then turn on going west on Williams. I have had for many, many years relatives in Savage, so I would go through, relatives in Shakopee, and I would go through Savage to hit Highway 13 and then go west to pick up the road to Shakopee. And this has been going on for years. I don't even think about it anymore when I drive that way, except for people cruising on Williams Drive going west. So I really want to say that I agree with Joe Gelhar, petition and frequently drive on Judicial Road and Williams Drive to this day, and I do believe a stoplight is not suitable at this intersection for reasons that Mr. Gelhar has outlined tonight in his petition. And I think it's would be very dangerous to have that stoplight because of all the years of experience I've had at that corner. So I support Joe and his petition.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person is Mr., forgive me for mispronouncing your name, Garcia? Mr. Fred? And if you can pronounce it for me, please.
My name is Fred Gercio. I live at 1298 Washburn Court, corner of Washburn Court and Williams Drive. I've been in Burnsville for 41 years now. We have a problem with Williams Drive, and before I get into that, I'm going to address that light for a second. We put a median in the middle of the road, and the engineer said that's for people to stand in case they have to be in between traffic. And if that's how they're going to cross the road, they're going to get killed. But that ramp, it can't be plowed across the street. It can get icy. Cars coming over the blind hill are going to hit ice patches. They're going to hit somebody in the crosswalk. They're going to have to move into a lane that now ends. And if that median wasn't there, it would be much easier to turn left out of Judicial and go west on Williams Drive. If you take that corner where the medians are, it's a very difficult corner, even when there aren't any cars there. So that would be one thing that would probably lessen the accidents, I would say, by 25%. Get that median stuff out of there. There's no reason for it. And then if you're really concerned with the crosswalk, put an overpass. But we have a real problem with Williams Drive in general. It's only 1.5 miles long. I live in the middle, 3/4 of a mile. And the trucks that go through there during the construction time are every 6 seconds. And they're loaded with rocks, they're loaded with sand, they're dropping rocks on the road, they're dropping sand on the road. And the day, I think it was June something, that I went to the open house, all the engineers said, oh, no, there's nothing on the road. And I had half a dozen dump trucks going, spewing sand like you can't believe. And I had just washed my car. And the next morning, it was full of soot from, well, sand and dust. It's poor for our health. I can't open my windows in the summertime because of all the dirt. And the noise, I had to do probably $15,000 worth of noise abatement, putting in soundproof windows, because that's my bedroom side. So instead of charging us, I think the houses that are close to Williams Drive, you should be helping us with sound abatement and getting Monterey in there to do noise studies and things like that. You know, I wound up doubling the insulation in my attic. I had a vent on the side of my house. When you have vents on the top of the roof, that should have never been approved because they don't work. So I had to close up the vent on the side of my house. That helped with the noise. I doubled the insulation, and I put in 2 soundproof glass windows. And I also bought a book from Monterey. I'm an engineer with a mechanical, electrical, thermal, and physics background. So I'm a very sound engineer, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff also. And I had a lot of misconceptions about sound. So I think that you should be, every distance you go away from the road, if you're 40 feet away, if you go another 40 away, the sound goes in half. So it's a linear type relationship. We're getting about 20,000 cars going by a day. Last spring, I had to contact you guys that in a 4-hour period, you disabled 6 cars. Most of them had 2 flats, probably front end damage. And then I had a little Tercel. It was $2,000 worth of damage just in parts. And I did the work myself. So it took out the exhaust, it hit the front pipe in the front, it knocked off the tailpipe and the muffler in the back. It took out the ball joints, it gave me 2 flat tires, and then the ball joints took out the 2 front tires. So it's 4 tires, an exhaust, a rebuild of the alignment. The shock actually took out the brake caliper, and it let air in there, so then that took out the rotor. So it's a front brake job. When I looked at the back, they should be done. That's $2,000 worth of parts. And then the potholes weren't just potholes, they were lines with the semi-truck tires. The asphalt 2 inches, and that's what it is in that road, it's 2 inches, is not rated for the trucks. And we're getting every 6 seconds a truck. And the day that I told them about the trucks, I said, no, you know, I couldn't believe the stuff billowing out of the top of the trucks. So if you really want to get some money for that road, it's not Williams Drive corridor, it's Williams Drive. It's 3/4 of a mile, I'm sorry, 1.5 miles, or I'm in the middle 3/4. Assess Kramer. That's where all the rock and the sand and stuff is coming from. And then maybe have Prior Lake and Savage help, because all their construction is not on 13, and that's where it should be. They're going by a major thoroughfare and taking a local road. And in my opinion, and that's bypassing metaphors. That's illegal, is it not? They should be on 13. So the traffic backs up past my house. I'm at 3/4 of a mile. So it's not a half-mile backup, it's a 3/4 of a mile to a mile backup. Sometimes getting out of my house, it takes me 10 minutes. I've had to wait 10 minutes to cross the road. It's a mess, and somebody's gonna get killed. And I have a neighbor that got T-boned coming out, I think it was Penn or Upton, and he hasn't recovered. It's been years. I had an accident. I was hit on my rear corner panel on County Road 5. 3 years ago, I had a cop pull in front of me as I was heading east on Williams. I had to do an emergency stop. This is in a 50-year-old CJ, and luckily I have what they call a big brake package. They usually have very poor brakes. They only did it 2 years. I had to do an emergency pullover. I'm all the way over to the curb, and we're looking at each other through the mirror, through the windows on the side. It was an unmarked, not the Explorer, but the Expedition. That's an 8,000-pound car. Imagine what it would have done to my little car. I don't have airbags. That's 2,500 pounds. Okay, he could have killed me. Then we have a head-on accident right in front of my house with 2 police cruisers had a head-on. It wasn't released, this is what, 4 years ago? It wasn't released to the media. It wasn't on TV. That's $250,000 worth of damage. They cut the one guy out with the jaws of life. And maybe after we're done, you can tell us about that a little bit, so everybody else will know. And, you know, the other thing is, when I went to these meetings at the church, I don't think your staff was open and honest with us. They didn't know how many accidents there were. They didn't know when the last time the road was paved. I think we're on about a five-year track as far as repaving Williams Drive. I don't know about you guys, but I can't afford an assessment every 5 years. I think that's a bit much. And the road's not made for that traffic, and it's mostly the trucks that are digging up the road. You can see it. There's a track where the tire goes. And 2 inches, when they did the last time I got to know the contractors, 2 inches isn't approved for that. I've seen huge excavators going down the road that are way past the sides of the trucks, and that's about the heaviest load you're gonna get. I've seen payloaders go down the road on the back of trailers and semis and things like that.
Okay.
And you're charging us a lot.
So your complaint is the assessment on the folks who live on Williams Drive when the years.
And the truck traffic, because somebody's gonna get killed.
Yeah.
Now, one of the solutions is, and I went to the meetings that you had with County Road 11 when you wanted to put the roundabouts in. And I spoke to probably 4 or 3 city engineers and 2 of your consulting engineers, and I recorded it just like I'm doing now. And they weren't very good engineers. I spent my life going on Fortune 500 floors and companies and changing their engineers and minds and helping them with different production and different equipment. And if you want a hard sell, try and change an engineering mind or how they're doing something. And these are large companies. You know, Train Company, IBM, McDonnell Douglas Aircraft. These are big companies. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to improve 13. And one of the things I talked to them, I said, do you know what a PLC is? And they said, no. I said, programmable logic controller. They said, no. I said, do you know what a NEMA 4 enclosure is? And they said, no. I said, do you know what a NEMA 4X enclosure is? And they said, no. I've been working with that kind of stuff since the 1980s. And back then, the programmable logic controllers were $3, $4, $5 grand. Now they're 200, 300, 500, maybe 1,000. And they can automate your lights on 13. There's only 4 lights. And then you should probably include the one on, east of 35W. Because if you make the traffic go quicker, that light on Nicollet is going to back up also. So what you should do is when you get the cars going, all the lights need to be sequenced. So you don't stop the traffic and you get it out of there.
Mr. DeSia, thank you. You know, I think we get what you're saying, but now we're on 13 and we're trying to do.
13 is going to fix Williams.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the thing is, yes, I see where you're trying to make the connections.
Oh, it's a
but
big connection.
Yeah.
And then I
But
think
right
they had a
now,
very
I
good.
have a list of people who would like to speak also. So, but we get what you're saying. Yeah, you're saying we need less of the big trucks on.
I don't think they should be allowed on the road at all.
Yeah. So those are things that I think, Mr. Belasty, is something that we have to work with MnDOT because that is a thoroughfare. And so those are things that we have to work with MnDOT on, if I am
Well,
correct.
according to
about
from
Pardon
what
me?
I'm being told,
Yeah.
the semi-truck drivers, they use maps.
Yeah.
And that road is allowed, it's marked that it's allowed for them. And I just
So-
heard what the engineer said. He said they're not supposed to be on there. So which one is it?
You know, I'm not going to solve that problem tonight for you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And the next one is, I think it's Mr. Rusty Douglas. And, yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not as well prepared as these guys. I didn't know I was supposed to bring a trapper keeper and some notes, but
It's
the guy
okay.
out there told me I had to sign up to enter the meeting, so that's why I did.
No,
and
no,
I guess
no.
now I'm up here speaking.
Yeah, signing
but,
up is if you want to speak.
Gotcha. So
And
I guess
your
I'll speak
name and
since I'm here.
address for the, name and address for the
My
record.
name is Rusty Douglas. My address is 15600 Crest Drive. I'm here about the road proposals. I attended some open houses and I was asking questions along the lines of reports, and I wanted some evidence on their reports. And they gave me the same bunk that they gave you guys today, you know, the one picture of a patch job and a tally list of 30% poor, 60 to 70% fair. I bought the house about 5 years ago, and since I bought the house, apparently there was a overlay a few years prior to that, as he had mentioned to you guys. So the road looked real well when we purchased the house, but since then, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, Dakota County came through and buried all our power lines and brought in dozers, front end loaders, you name it. And while they were doing it, they really put a dent in the road along with the plow truck. That one patch that he showed you going up the hill there, your plow
Dakota
truck
County
hits
or
it daily.
Dakota Electric?
What's that?
Dakota County or Dakota Electric? Because
Dakota County was funding it. It was Dakota Electric, and
Yeah. Because the power lines are a public utility, but
Okay,
they're
well,
not
regardless.
owned by,
so when they were coming through, I mean, they were wreaking havoc on everything, including my septic tank that they decided to bore through the side of that I had to replace for $30,000. So my concerns
That would-
are, I
that
guess,
would be
you know, it seems like listening to the rest of these people that you guys are handing out, you know, here's a proposal, here's take this assessment and swallow it. And with that being said, you know, when I originally got it, it was 83. Today it looked like it was down to 64 or whatever he had mentioned. But with that being said, say that 64, is that 20 to 30 years? We're on septic and well. I mean, who's to say you guys aren't going to get greedier and come at me and say, hey, you're a block off of 5. We want to hook you up to city and sewer water now to get some more of your money. 5 years later, you come up, rip my road up again, and then hit me with the new
Mr.
assessment.
Douglas, so you're new to Southwest Burnsville.
Correct.
Yeah, and we have an agreement with them that we're not going to do that. Not the city of Burnsville. Now, you said you worked with the county on those septic systems. We have an agreement with the folks in Southwest Burnsville. You don't want if you don't want public utilities, we're not going to bring it through. If you all want it, then we'll bring it through.
So is that a vote, you know? Is that,
It's an agreement that we made with Southwest Burnsville some years back. Yes, so.
You
Mr.
have
Belasty-
to
Yes,
ask.
you have to ask. So Mr. Belasty can show you what that is. So until you want that, we're not going to come and take away your personal, your private septic system. That's yours.
Gotcha.
Okay?
so what, moving forward from this then, I mean,
Yeah, and the same thing, we have an agreement with you all. You all don't want a whole lot of, you don't want your roads to be paved.
No, I don't.
But yet, when the snow flies and everything and you've got big holes, then people come in and say, please do what Mr. Belasty
I
is.
personally
yeah,
would rather it be dirt.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah.
with that being said, I'd
Yeah.
like to know and see, like I said, when I went to these
Yeah.
open houses, I asked for these numbers and
Well, the-
proof.
the folks
and
before
they never
you-
gave me
yeah.
anything as
The
far
folks
as,
before you-
know, I would like to know these assessments, it's supposed to increase my property value. I'd like to know what this new road is. If it was a dirt road and you were putting in a pavement road, that would increase my property value, correct?
Yeah.
So with this being said, it's already paved. You're just repaving it. Why is that not part of the tax dollars?
No.
Why am I being assessed for that?
Well, we assess everybody. This is Mr. Blasty. Can you, again, help Mr. Douglas to understand what we're doing? Because we're only doing alternative one, which is, we're just doing a rehab.
Madam Mayor, that is correct. The staff recommendation is to remove and replace the existing pavement that's out there today. Yep.
So, yeah, and so one of the things that you showed us in the pictures is all of the big holes, and you took the drones, and the drones are the ones that you can see the aerials of those streets, correct?
Correct.
Okay, yes. And so I'm very aware of Southwest Burnsville.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I understand there are some of you who want to keep it as dirt roads, and there are some of you who don't want to. And then it was a collective meeting that of all of the folks, so you've only been there 5 years.
Correct.
And they wanted this.
Yes, ma'am.
This very minimal overlay for the roads down there because of all of the dust that we hear complaints about over the summer. And then, of course, in the wintertime, it's hard for all of you to get through because of all of the whole big holes in the street and so forth. So we did it. Until you ask, we don't do anything down in Southwest Burnsville. So, but
My next question is, you said there's a hearing and this, that, and the other thing, but ours won't be till after the construction project. Why is that?
okay, Mr. Blasty, can you please again go through the process because
Seems
if
like
you
we're
can-
missing out on
yeah.
another speaking opportunity to me.
Yeah.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So the Southwest Burnsville policy that we've been referencing, I can share that with you first of all, if you'd like to
Yeah.
read through that.
Yeah.
I would, sir.
That policy is based, the assessment methodology for Southwest Burnsville that's directed by the policy is that the properties are assessed on actual construction costs at the end of the project. So that's why we have to wait until after the project is complete to figure out what those amounts are, and that is the final assessment amount. The other project areas within the city fall under a different policy, and we know what the assessment rate will be once we open bids. So their assessment hearing is before the project.
Yep.
And then the interest, if you don't pay up front, you were talking 5.5. Is that a collective whole for that assessment, or is that per year? Like, how's that in?
I will defer to our CFO, Jenny, on how the interest is applied. It's a fixed rate.
Correct. It's 5.5% annually of I believe, the amount outstanding. The county does that calculation, but yeah.
I believe that would be monthly compounded.
Yeah.
I'm gonna still hold control of this meeting, please. I will, okay. You can
Not
ask the question for
intentionally creating an
everybody.
uprising, I
Our
swear.
CFO is going to answer that.
So I believe it's 5.5%, and the county applies this, I believe, annually because it's paid in two installments with the property taxes each year.
Gotcha. So with that being said, like I said, I'm new to all this, and I think I have a right to, but I'm not 100% sure. But can I defer to my neighbor, Grant Swanson? I believe he's probably on the list.
Mr. Swanson is not
He
on the list.
he walked in as you were closing the doors, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to take that, and then I need to recess the meeting for about 10 minutes, 7 minutes, and then we will reconvene. So, sir,
Frank Swanson.
give us your name and address for the record.
My
And
name
you're
is-
in Southwest Burnsville as well?
Correct.
Okay.
My name is Grant Swanson. I live at 15513 Crest Drive. I know it's being called Crest Lane, but it's Crest Drive, so if we could just make note of that. Just as something so you guys know who this assessment is going towards, 2022 Federal Reserve median household income for savings was between $5,400 and $8,700. So basically what this assessment is doing, if people, again, don't have that savings, they're getting penalized with a fee. Why are we getting penalized? I get if we can't pay for it up front, it goes on taxes. But again, why are we paying a percentage? Why are we doing that?
Mr. Vlasti?
I'm sorry. Is the question regarding the interest rate?
Yeah, I'm saying, why are we getting charged interest?
The interest rate is based on statutory allowance for the Minnesota Statute 429 process, and it's based on costs incurred by the city to essentially loan that amount.
Okay, but it's your guys' loan, right? Like, I don't charge people rent when they want to take a ride with me. You know what I mean? So if you guys need money, why are we getting interest charged when you guys need the money?
Sir?
Instead of, you know what I mean? Like, if 60% of the road needs to be done and that's what taxes cover, well, I guess it's 60% of the road. Why can't we just do that?
And you're paying, so the thing is, we're charging you the cost of the road. Now, if you're not going to pay it all at one time, then the rest of the city of Burnsville is carrying your assessment, and that's part of what that interest rate is.
Okay, but under that special assessment, it has to directly benefit me. So on some of these things, you made note of, let's see here, sewers, storm drains, water main, curb gut. We don't have any of that stuff.
No.
So why are we getting such a large charge for asphalt and some class 5?
Yeah. Mr. Blasty, I don't think, we're not charging them because we're not going underneath. So I think you're not understanding. When Mr. Blasty was talking about how we're charging everybody else, it's not, Southwest Burnsville is different. Please help
we different?
him
We're
understand.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Yes, the assessment that is applied for Southwest Burnsville is just based on the pavement rehabilitation that the city is proposing. And those costs will be known based on bid prices this spring, and the methodology and the actual costs will be shared when the project is complete.
Okay, well, that's fine. But again, why are we paying interest on something?
Well,
Especially for
because
asphalt.
the city of Burnsville, everybody else who lives in this city, plus our businesses, are paying to carry your assessment if you don't pay it off.
So it's only deferred, though. I still have a obligation to pay it, though, correct?
Sure.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. To be a good citizen, I want to pay off my debts.
Yeah.
But it seems unfair that I should be paying interest on something when our taxes could get 60% of it done. And when we recoup the rest of those taxes to do the 40%, we come back and do the rest of the 40%.
Madam Mayor,
yeah.
I can add to that. So
Yeah.
when I said that the costs incurred by the city,
Yeah.
the city may have to bond to cover the amount of assessments that's not paid in full.
Yeah.
So when I say the costs incurred to the city, that includes interest rates that the city may incur when they bond for those improvements.
So we bond for it to carry that debt.
Okay, but you're saying, but in here it says that, where is it? Excuse me. It says you will be assessed. So no matter what, we're getting assessed.
Yes.
So it's again one of those things. Either we take almost all of our savings out and pay you, otherwise we end up paying more in the end. Just because you can,
Because we're carrying the debt for you.
but you're not. You just right here. You will be assessed. You just told me.
That's right. But we're carrying the debt.
I guess I'm having a hard time understanding you.
Okay.
If you're
What
telling me I have
what
to
I'm
pay-
going to do is I'm going to have our CFO
Okay.
speak with you and help
Okay.
you offline, okay?
All right. And then just to clarify here too, it'd be nice to have a little more clarity. Because in some of these pages, on the very first page, it says the revised amount reflects current not to exceed amount. But then the second page, it has that same amount, and then it says this amount is subject to change. So which is it?
I am going to have Mr. Blasty and our CFO help you offline, okay?
Okay.
All right, very good. And then at this time, we're going to take a 7-minute recess and then reconvene in 7 minutes.
Are we going to leave this subject?
Pardon me?
Are we leaving this subject?
No, we're going to come back and continue.
I have some more things I'd like to say.
reconvene the Burnsville City Council meeting. And the next person who would like to speak, I am now reconvening the meeting, so please take your seats. And the next person who wants to speak is Mrs. Schroeder from Elkanah Lane. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Couts and City Council members. My name is Katina Schroeder. My husband, Mike, and I live at 2401 Elkanah Lane. And our concern, of course, is with the street improvement project. Elkanah Lane is a very small, very wooded, very quiet street. There's no sewers, there's no curbs. And we continually hear about the reclamation alternative, the higher cost alternative. My question and my concern today is, of course, this needs to be redone. It's been noted that our street does need repair. However, how do we petition to utilize the lower cost alternative? This is definitely going to be an incredible financial hardship for our family as well as others on our block that we have spoken about. So how do we place a vote with your organization or in the city council with the lower cost alternative that would still satisfy the requirements of the street repair?
Mrs. Schroeder, what staff is proposing is the lower cost. That's the rehab.
The $6,000 when there's also a $4,000 one as well.
Overlay 4,000 is what he's recommending.
Yeah. So it's just a mill and overlay that we're doing.
That's correct, with the exception that the overlay will occur on gravel because there is not a base of asphalt.
Which
Yep.
is the $6,000 option, correct?
That is, no, that's the $4,000 option.
Okay, because it runs contrary to the letter that we have here, that the $6,000 option was being presented.
Got it.
So how can we be sure that the $4,000 option will be done and we aren't assessed the $6,000 option?
We're going to be voting on it tonight.
Yeah. We're voting on it,
So
Mr.
we're gonna
Blasty. So
officiate that tonight.
what you propose, can you put up what you're proposing for Southwest Burnsville?
And I believe I saw the $6,000 figure up here as well prior.
Yeah, it was option 1 and 2. And
Yeah, and
but
we're,
you're looking for option 1, and that's what he is proposing for you.
no,
I
we're
think
looking
the
at the mill and
alternative one.
overlay alternative for $4,189.14.
Alternative 1.
Correct.
That's what he is proposing for you.
And that's due to feedback from the neighborhood.
Yes, correct. So we just want to make sure that that is correct, the one that we're going to get, rather than the $6,000
Yeah.
that's reflected on this letter.
Yeah, according to the resolution that's before us, it's alternative 1.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
I got the same letter. Same thing.
Okay, so somehow we need to take a look at that letter and see that it goes out. Because, yeah, if that's a confusion, we better correct that.
Madam Mayor, yes. And I'll clarify that tonight is just the improvement hearing, so the actual assessment hearing, when we are required to publish the assessment notices, will occur this fall after the project is complete.
Okay, I think that's good communication, Mr. Blasty, to our residents.
And just to clarify, the project that looks like we're going to pursue is
Yes.
option 1.
That's
with
right.
The mill and overlay, not the $6,000 project.
No,
Even though the letter says different.
and that's what and if I am correct, that's how the resolution reads.
Right. Is it, Mr. Logan, did that letter get sent out just referring to the one option, or were both of them intended to be on there?
When we were soliciting input at the open house just last week is the basis for those two different amounts in the letter. And then when we sent out the letters for the public hearing tonight, we wanted to ensure that the higher amount was highlighted as the initially proposed assessment amount, knowing that we could do a cheaper alternative and have that recommended before everyone tonight.
Okay, very good. All right, very good. Okay, the next one is Mr. Chris Schletty. Burnsville Parkway. Mr. Schletty Schletty. Okay, you must have left. Okay. So, Mr. Garcia, you said you had additional information you wanted to share with us?
We do have a couple of problems with the Williams Drive that I think the city could address. For most of that 3/4 of a mile from the townhouses all the way to my house, on the north side, there's no storm drains. So you're making the water go from the north side to the south side, and that water and the freeze and the salt is what's corroding the road, as well as the traffic. And so you repaved that in 2019 with the sewer project, and it already failed in the spring of 2024. So we're not getting that 20 years that this stuff, we're getting 5 years, and every 5 years you're assessing us again, and it's getting a bit old. That used to be a county road. I'd like you to go back to the county. I'd like you to talk to Scott County, as well as Prior Lake and Savage, and see if we can get some cooperation on putting some of their funds into that road, as well as Kramer and the cement company. And I realize that you guys want all the, what do you call it? The river quadrant, you want all that business in there. But either they need to stay on Highway 13, or they need to help pay for our road. We're also getting a lot of plow damage. Oh, and by the way, with all that damage, if you got other people's complaint about, I only got 4, I think I got 4 or 6 people in one afternoon that were disabled. They couldn't drive the car, it had to be towed. Most of them had 2 flats. I had 2 flats. I'd like to get their names because I'd like to get together as a group and get some money from you guys. You should cover that. In my cul-de-sac, most of the damage in my cul-de-sac, it doesn't need repaving. It's the plow bouncing off the curbs. And on the center island, put a steel plate at they plow and put everything up on the front, but they're breaking up the concrete. So that needs to be, I've seen other municipalities use a steel ramp. So, that would be a better idea. And I think I mentioned that across the street, when we did the last resurfacing project and the sewer project, they left 24 squares. And as you're aware, if you don't do curb and gutter and improvement, we don't get assessed. So I believe for a standard repaving, we would not get assessed, correct?
Mr. Blasty.
A standard repaving implying a mill and overlay or a rehabilitation, as we define it, is assessed, yes.
Okay. Well, on that road, we need to look. It's not local traffic. And it's not lasting 20 years. It's lasting 4 or 5. And then the lights on 5, the same thing with 13. They need to be automated. So they need to be able to look at the traffic and treat it like a bottle line. If nobody's there, don't change the light. I can't tell you how many times I've been there and the light changes and there's nobody there to go. So that wastes, 3-4 minutes, especially on 13. That's a big deal. And I think the Washburn and there was just an accident, Washburn and 13 can get addressed. There's coming out of the McDonald's, there should be a little bit wider of a lane so they can have a right turn lane. Right now we cheat. And I can't tell you how many times I've got out of the car and said, when you come through here, cheat to the left when you want to go straight. And then the guys can go to the right and they can still go, especially when the light allows, they've already stopped traffic. A lot more cars can go. So I think that's an easy improvement that you can help that. And also you need to keep track on it. Go look at it now. There's probably 2 or 3 2 wheelbarrows worth of rocks that were dumped from the Kramer mine. They act like marbles. So you guys just had a big accident there probably 2 weeks ago. It shut everything down for hours, I saw on TV. But those rocks, when they're put on the road right there, they act like marbles. If you have to make an emergency stop or move at highway speeds, that stuff acts like marbles. It's not sand. So I think, automation of 5, and you have to treat it like a bottle line. I told the guys, go to Pepsi, ask the engineers. I did automation for 30 years. And when I looked it up online, Minnesota's almost dead last. And you guys didn't even know what a PLC was. I found that very disheartening. Same thing on 5. You have 3 lights through there, and I almost always hit at least 1 or 2 of those lights. So you can increase the throughput by timing and sequencing those lights. And we don't need a camera there to monitor. They need to happen automatically. So if nobody's there, they don't go. If we're going left off the highway and there's 3 more cars and there's room, let them go. Don't stop it. So that kind of thing, that automation, I would say you can increase the throughput. And I realize you guys aren't responsible for 13, but you need to have this mindset and this information so you can work with the county guys because it affects your local roads. Is that when you automate that, I'd say you can get another 25% through that section on 13. That's a lot. 25%, you guys, you know, as I say, you give your left nut to have that kind of increase for almost no money. And when I looked up online, when I wanted to see what states were automated, we were almost dead last. Okay? And then the last thing, I made a note, but I don't remember what my note was about. Those type of things, and especially the water on going across Williams Drive. So every time I go home, in the wintertime, I'm getting a bath of salt water underneath my car. So it corrodes the heck out of my car. I've already told you that we're getting sandblasted. My windows are all pitted from all the sand and stuff. And I never realized what was going on until I went up 35W on a motorcycle. You get sandblasted like you can't believe. So, you know, I've had company cars my whole life, and the front of the cars would all get sandblasted. And it's from the sand and stuff from the quarry. So on Williams Drive, we're already paying dearly. Our windshields need to be replaced or polished. Our front end of our cars need to be repainted. The noise, I can't open the windows on that side of my house at all between the dirt and the dust. And then I told you I already spent $15,000, $20,000 in noise abatement. And now all the trees are dead. It's going to cost me $15,000, $20,000 to remove those ash trees. I have beautiful big trees. I had 100 trees. I got 30 big trees. They're almost all going to have to be taken down. Okay? So, you know, lighten up on our assessments if you could. And I really, if we've been assessed once, and we have already, maybe that's it for 20 years. And the rest is on you guys. Because we're not getting anywhere near that 15, 20, 25 years you guys had up on the display. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There's no one else that is on my list. Yes.
Could I have a minute again?
Okay.
I'll make it brief.
Make it one.
I did have one more comment from a meeting that I had with Logan last year that discussing the different alternatives on Williams Drive. The one that he noted was the standard traffic light, and at the end of it, it says, this is the cheapest of the 3 alternatives and has the best traffic operational performance. However, it is ranked last for safety perspective. So I just wanted to have that taken into account too on that. And I'm just curious too on the timeline, when do the final decisions get made on what's actually going to happen on the road? Is there going to be more meetings? Is there public meetings? Or is this kind of the final end of this? Or where does this go from here?
This is the public hearing that we're having on the meetings and doing the assessments.
Okay. How about as far as whether there's a stoplight that's going to go or not? Is that decided this evening?
That's all part of, Mr. Blasty, that's all part of the project.
Madam Mayor, that is correct. Ordering the improvements tonight includes the traffic signal, and I can provide some context on the alternatives. If you remember in the corridor study, we were evaluating 3 alternatives for this intersection. The other 2 alternatives utilized roundabouts, which are statistically safer than a signalized intersection. So that's the context for that comment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and you wanted to speak? Give us your name and address for the record. And
hello, I'm Ashley Swanson. My address is 15513 Crest Drive. And I just have a couple of questions. I don't want to take too long. It's my son's 4th birthday tonight, and it's kind of a big deal to be here and missing it. So I have a question about the additional value that is added to the homes with the assessment for the road and how that's calculated.
Mr. Blasty?
Yes, Madam Mayor. That is the basis for the Minnesota State Statute 429. which is what gives the authority to councils, to cities to assess for improvements. So I guess the simple answer would be, in order to validate that or challenge that at the assessment hearing in the fall, an appraisal would be needed. That would be the basis for the value of the improvements.
So would it be fair to say that an appraisal is going to happen to make sure that the value is added?
Mr. Blasty?
In special circumstances, we have used appraisals or special market benefit analysis. In the context of Southwest Burnsville, that was not done. That would be done if an assessment amount were challenged.
How would one go about challenging an assessment amount?
I can defer that question to Jared, but ultimately that would be done at the assessment hearing in the fall.
Who's Jared?
Sorry,
I'm going to
city
have
attorney.
our attorney address that. Mr. Shepherd?
Yes, thanks, Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, you will, as Mr. Velocity said, so we'll have the assessment hearing in the fall. You'll get notice of that. That's a public hearing as well. So you'll have the opportunity to come here and lodge an objection. So you'll have to present your objection in writing at or before the assessment hearing, or at the time of the assessment hearing.
Who would that be submitted to?
To the city clerk?
To the city clerk, yeah. And you'll get notice of that with the notice of the public hearing. And because you're a defective property, just like this public hearing, you will get notice of that.
Okay. And the city clerk is Mrs. Michelle Collins.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So if you lodge your objection at the time of the at or before the assessment hearing, then you're able, under the statute, to continue and make an assessment appeal in district court.
Okay. And I had one more question. The interest rate of 5.5%, over how many years is that going to occur over?
Mr. Blasty?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. The assessment would automatically go onto your property taxes in a 15-year prepayment plan. So it could be paid off in full at any time, but if you're only making the minimum, it would be over 15 years.
So at any time, if one were to change their mind about the 5.5% interest rate, they could?
At any time, you could pay off the remainder of the assessment.
And one more question. How was it determined that the recommendations are for option 1 versus option 2?
Mr. Blasty?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. A number of factors, one of them being the feedback that we received when we engaged the community. Another one being the cost effectiveness. So they're really, both alternatives are quite equal when you look at the cost per year of pavement life. So that was ultimately what made us recommend alternative 1 for the area.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. And you have all of the telephone numbers for Mr. Blasty. If you have any other questions, he's happy to, yeah, you got all that information. Okay, very good. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure. We are asked to adopt the resolution ordering the improvements, approve the plans and specifications, and order the advertisement for bids for 2025 Street Improvement Project 25-101 and 25-102 and 25-105. Councilmember Keeley.
Well, a lot got covered tonight. Thank you, Logan. It was a lengthy project. It involved 2 different areas. Southwest Burnsville, as we learned tonight, there's some new residents that moved in, and I was suggesting to one of the residents that Southwest Burnsville should organize and have like a welcome packet to let them know that they have a very unique area, a very enviable place to live. You feel like you're,
And we
as
like
he
that.
put it, 150 miles out in the country, minutes from the metro. I think that's why we all love it.
Yeah.
And I'm just one of those that always wanted to live there but couldn't. But that it's unique. In most areas, the road does not have a curb, and it keeps that rural country feel when there isn't a curb. There's very large lots. There's lots of woods, and the wells and the septic systems. You know, they're going to be there as long as
They want it.
everyone wants them there, right? So there's a lot that we preserved for that look and feel of the neighborhood with this agreement with the city. So new people coming in aren't aware of that, and like I said, I would suggest the Southwest organize and provide an information sheet like, welcome to a very unique area in the metro, and you now live in one of the really nice areas where you can just minutes jump on a highway and go to a Timberwolves game, and when you come back home, you'll feel like you're almost in Iowa. You're out in the country so far. Anyway, the question I had was the opposition for the streetlight, because as I heard the comments, there were a lot of comments that seemed
Williams Drive?
on Williams Drive, sorry, on Williams Drive.
You're shifting.
There were a lot of well, that's what we did all night. We kind of went back and forth between the two areas. Stoplights make streets safer, slow traffic down. So when I hear comments that that it was not going to do that, it was a bit of a conflict, right? So there were obviously some potential special circumstances. I think it's going to make that road safer, slowing it down, reducing the width of the lanes. All of those things are going to mitigate the problems. But my biggest concern is the impact on a property owner who's right on the corner, the gentleman who spoke and provided appraisal and, the negative impact to the property. I don't know that in 18 years I've sat up here, I've ever heard or witnessed a stoplight having a negative impact on the property value. And so I don't know what we can do about that. I mean, honestly, because I think the street improvement and the stoplight to control traffic there, I've driven it many times. I think we all have. It's kind of a racetrack. It's a little too wide. It feels like you're out in the country and you can go 65 miles an hour and you're not supposed to, right? But people do. I have concern over the truck traffic taking that route. And maybe there's something we can do to post signs that no trucks aren't allowed, semis aren't allowed on that route. I'm not sure why they would go there unless there's some specific pickup and drop off that road, other than they just want to get around all the 13 construction traffic and the backup, which has been massive for the last couple of years and will be for another year or so more before all of that improvement is done. Obviously, we're all human. We go the path of least resistance, and semi drivers probably are doing the same thing. So I think the street light and the narrowing is the right thing to do. I'm concerned about the impact on that property owner, but I honestly have nothing to offer for a solution. I don't know that there's anything we can do.
Well, I think a lot of meetings have been taking place, a lot of gathering information at our parties in the plaza, meetings at St. James Lutheran Church, and so there's been a lot of engagement going on, and with the alternatives, because we heard a great deal about the roundabout and Mr. Gelhar not wanting that, and then the alternative solution to really understand safety was the traffic light. Mr. Blasty, did I misspeak in any of those engagements that finally ended up with the traffic lights?
Madam Mayor, I would agree with your statements, and that is staff's recommendation, yes.
And there's been a lot of hearings. I think we had one in a park also about Williams Drive. This was really early on in the process. One of the parks right out. So a lot of engagement in the 2 years that we've looked at Williams Drive to find the solution. So members of the council, I think we've heard from our residents, we've heard from a lot of folks, and staff has done the work that they've done. And tonight, we are here to look at to approve the plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for bids for the 2025 street improvement projects.
I just want to clarify another point. We're looking at a copy of the letter that was sent to the residents on January 17th. It's dated that. It does note referencing a lower number than previously discussed of 6,300, and then at the bottom of the page 1, it does say 2 will be presented, one at 6,307 and one at 4,189. So
this is just for the South Burnsville folks.
It was the top paragraph referenced 63 being the lower, but then down below that there was yet another lower one. So I think there was I can see where there was confusion as to which one was the lower. Right?
And that, and that's the reason what I said to Mr. Velasquez at the beginning. Perhaps it's the way that we communicate in our letters, and it has to be better. And we can always do better. Okay, so let's make sure that everybody knows tonight that what we're voting on is the mill and overlay alternative. That's the lower cost.
Yep. And I will point out too, seeing that 4189 is going to be 14% of the total cost, it's worth noting that the city of Burnsville has some of the lowest assessments for street improvements of anyone in the Twin Cities. We have shared over the last several years many examples of other cities that issue special assessments in the 10, 15, and $20,000. It's amazing. We don't believe in that. We have one of the lowest for a reason. This council wants it to be low. We've had ideas floated of taking that to zero and just and really spreading the cost throughout the entire city. But the majority of the council has wanted to move forward with this current model, which does represent one of the lowest in the Twin Cities for suburbs. So we do work hard to try and keep that as small as possible. Southwest Burnsville has some very large lots, and we actually reduced those costs in a separate approach because of the dramatic size and variance of those lots. We worked very hard to improve it even and get it down even more. So if you were here 15 or 20 years ago, it might have been in the 8,000 to 12,000 range simply because of the size of the lot if you were on one of those larger lots. So we went to a different system that actually lowered that for everybody. So I think we did the right thing.
Yeah,
we've worked hard to continue
and we
to get
worked
it down.
on it with the residents.
With their participation.
With
right.
their participation. We didn't do it in a vacuum.
So anyway, with that, I'll move to approve the presented.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
So Councilmember Keeley, you're making the motion?
Yeah, give me a second here. I'm just getting my iPad back to
and it's on this,
first
if you
page.
can go to staff recommendation, you can make it from there.
Boy, yeah.
Do you see it?
No.
Go to the top then.
Well, yeah, I'll just move to approve the resolution ordering improvements, approving plans and specifications, and ordering the advertising for bids for the 2025 street improvement projects, 25-101, 102, and 105.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
And there's a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and a motion carries.
And to clarify,
Yeah,
Madam
thank
Mayor,
you.
we just approved the specifications for the mill and overlay option at
Yes.
4189. That wasn't spelled out, but it's in this
Yeah.
document.
It is. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, the next item. Yeah, Mr. Gers?
This is the first I heard lane narrowing on Williams Drive. Tell us what that is. And also, we've had very little communication what your project actually entails, other than a little map on the back of this letter that we got on the 17th. So I went to one of the meetings at the church, and they couldn't tell me. I asked point blank, it's the video. Tell me what project options, tell me what you want to do.
Yeah.
So tell me about the lane narrowing. We don't, if the lanes had been more narrow than they are now,
So-
my Jeep would have been a head-on collision, and I probably would have been.
Mr. Garcia, I'm going to have Mr. Belasti talk with you and give you the outline of all of the times that we have had meetings about Williams Drive.
I just want to know what the lane they are.
Yeah, we're not, I'll rephrase that, road narrowing, right, for the car lanes, right? Because that's what slows people down. And that'll reduce the accidents that have been happening out there.
There's a lane in each direction and a center turn lane. Why would you narrow it?
Okay, we're going to move forward. I'm going to have you speak with Mr. Belasti offline because we have other items that we have to agree.
There are other people listening. Tell us, you haven't communicated what is lane narrowing is. Tell us.
We had a few meetings to discuss this.
So we've already discussed it, we've already held the public meeting, and we already voted on the item. So thank you so much for coming in this evening. And if there's other questions that you have, Mr. Belasti would be happy to talk with you. Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to the next item. And the next item is 5B. And this is the resolution to approve the cooperative agreement with MnDOT and Dakota County for I-35W project from Cliff Road to the I-35W split. And Mr. Belasti, our engineer, is going to present this item as well. Mr. Belasti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we have the I-35W Cooperative Construction Agreement. It is a three-party agreement with MnDOT and Dakota County. And as you noted, it covers the overall MnDOT project, which is from Cliff Road to the Buck Hill off-ramp just south of County Road 42. So looking specifically at the Cliff Road bridge replacement, the city has a water main that does need to get relocated in order for the construction of that new bridge. That is being done at MnDOT's cost. The city has a 15% cost share to lengthen the bridge span for a future Cliff Road widening and trail extension. Looking at the Burnsville Parkway bridge replacement, there is a document called the Visual Quality Manual that was established. The committee was established in November of 2022, and it comprised of city council members, staff, and members of the Chamber of Commerce and Community Foundation. And really what that document did was guide the visual character of the corridor and inform specifically the aesthetic design of the Burnsville Parkway Bridge. So with that, the bridge itself was identified as a level B bridge from MnDOT, so that allows them to participate in up to $300,000 of aesthetic improvements on the bridge itself. And the components that are being funded with that MnDOT funding is the arch railing and then textures and finishes on the bridge structure. Other components that were identified in the Visual Quality Manual included some enhanced aesthetic improvements such as limestone retaining walls off the bridge, 4 concrete plazas at the quadrants of the bridge on the Burnsville Parkway grade, ornamental railing and stone benches, and then vegetative landscaping above the standard MnDOT. So this is what it would look like with the full enhanced improvements, and what those enhanced improvements would cost would be approximately $1 million. So when you take out the $300,000 of funding that MnDOT has available for those aesthetics and the $350,000 that the city identified, we still have a very significant funding gap, and that does not include any future landscaping. So in total, we were looking at approximately a $545,000 funding gap to include all of those aesthetic design elements. Of note, there are some street lighting relocation needs for the bridge replacement, and we've identified funding for that out of the streetlight utility fund. As far as timing goes, the project is out for bid currently. Once bids are opened, the funds would then need to be dispersed to MnDOT based on bid pricing, which creates a bit of an issue if we were to do the aesthetic investments, because that would require then a reduction of the 2025 expenditures. And upon review, we have not identified any available funds that would be able to fill that funding gap. The enhanced aesthetics that we discussed are on the bridge are still remaining in the project and will be funded via MnDOT's contribution. All of the off-bridge enhanced elements have been removed from the project and will not be in the bid package. There will be MnDOT standard vegetation along 35W that they will perform maintenance on. And then another component that was identified in the visual quality manual was the idea or the ability to add color changing bridge lighting in the future as a city project, and we are estimating that as approximately a $50,000 future project. And as always, we could revisit any off-bridge enhanced aesthetics at a future date if needed. So here's what the bridge is proposed to look like aerially. And then here you can see kind of the angle that drivers would see. Still many nice design components on the bridge itself, just really removing some of those kind of off-street, higher maintenance landscaping components.
But we're going to be reusing what we have on the bridge now, like the 4 pillars on the side. Aren't we going to clean it up and reuse it as well?
Madam Mayor, there are a few metal architectural components on the bridge today that are going to be salvaged. And then the new bridge, as you see here today, kind of has those 4 bridge abutments that are kind of a limestone design.
I know. And what are we going to do? I thought when we had the discussion, those pillars on those 4 pillars are going to be retained that are there now.
Madam Mayor, I don't believe we would be able to retain the pillars themselves, but we can salvage the placards and any metal architectural components on them.
Because there's lighting on those pillars. I don't see lighting.
Madam Mayor, you are correct. We are going to reuse as much of the lighting as we can, yes. So, speaking of lighting, the street lighting funding for the project is only available for the relocation and salvaging and reinstalling of the streetlights that are out there today. The project may use all of the 2025 budgeted streetlight funding, and the conduits for a future lighting project will be included in the bridge itself, so that will be an easier addition should we choose to do that in the future. Also in the agreement is the Buck Hill Road off-ramp to County Road 42. So that includes a new southbound 35W off-ramp to Buck Hill Road, which we'll also be able to utilize to go eastbound on County Road 42. It includes construction of the roundabout at that new intersection of the off-ramp and Buck Hill Road. And it includes revisions to the existing southbound to County Road 42 off-ramp. Looking at the overall costs and funding that are included in the agreement, the 3-party agreement, we have approximately $1,378,000 of costs that are city costs in the agreement, and then you can see we have sufficient fund balances in each of those 3 project areas. Of note, all of those costs on the previous slide do include construction engineering. Actual construction costs will be known once bids are opened, and that will be what the city is invoiced from MnDOT. We also have an agreement with Dakota County that exists today specifically to the Buck Hill Road off-ramp project. So that was approved on August 20th, 2024. And what that agreement did was outline the cost sharing for that component of the project, which was 70% Dakota County and 30% city. Staff are recommending that we amend that agreement at a future date that will allow Dakota County and the city to do a post-project billing to reconcile any costs, to make sure that at the end of the project, the true out-of-pocket costs are in alignment with the 70-30 cost sharing that was agreed to. So next steps, after tonight's resolution approving the agreement, we will wait for MnDOT to provide us with the bid opening information on February 7th. Looking ahead then to the spring, we will be looking to amend the agreement with Dakota County, and construction would begin that MnDOT will lead. And then fall 2026 would be the anticipated substantial completion for the entirety of the 35W project. And then shortly following that, we would do any final payment reconciliation with Dakota County if needed.
Okay, so tonight with this agreement, it includes what the bridge work is going to look like on the parkway. Am I correct?
The agreement includes
It's going to
this, yes,
this look,
that is correct.
but no lights. But you did say that we have it budgeted in it, but it doesn't show it.
Madam Mayor, that is correct. The rendering does not accurately show
What
all
it's
of the
really going
lighting.
to look like.
Yes, in general, we are trying to salvage and reinstall the lighting as it is today.
Those 4 lights that are mounted on those posts that
Yeah.
the mayor was talking about, those are being salvaged and will be mounted on the top of these? You're saying, or no?
You know, I don't know. This is the reason why, because I remember in my check-in, I asked about those pillars, if they're going to be reclaimed, cleaned up, and reused, or not. And then the lights, I mean,
Just the lights. I think those pillars are just part of the deconstruction of what's
Yeah.
there, but the light fixtures, I think there's a
they're,
quad.
they're,
four
yeah,
lamps,
it's like a
decorative lamps
candelabra
Yeah.
facing up, yeah.
I couldn't remember if that was
Yeah.
part of what was being salvaged and
Yeah.
repurposed.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, yes, they will salvage all of the lighting. We'll reinstall it in a fashion that's consistent with the general bridge design that you see on the screen.
Okay. All right. Members of the council, we are asked to adopt the resolution to approve the 3-party cooperative construction agreement with MnDOT and Dakota County for the I-35W resurfacing project and Cliff Road to I-35W split, and that includes the bridge, the Parkway Bridge.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. I am going to see how we treat that bridge as we continue to move forward. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is 5C, and this is to adopt the 2025 Parks and Natural Resource Commission's work plan. And presenting is Mr. Cody Motz, Vice Chair of the PNRC. Good evening, and thank you for coming this evening. Sorry we had to make you wait for so long.
That's quite all right.
Madam Mayor, could I
Lots
ask a
to
quick
discuss.
question before he starts?
Sure.
Were those cookies really that good this morning?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
they were really that good. You have to watch the show to understand that, I guess.
Yeah.
As you said, I'm the vice chair. The chair couldn't be here, so thank you for having me. Obviously, the Parks and Natural Resources Commission has an annual work plan. This is the presentation for that. So the city code basically states 3 things: to advise, to guide, and to advocate you, the city council. We are all obviously just volunteers, and we look at all of this moving forward. The PNRC topics include approved plans, policy, or code. These are often completed annually. Studies and projects, some are yearly, many are updates to the existing projects or studies. And then the third one is the commissioner requests. Those are ones that we come up with, or we've heard from people in the community that are wanting more information on some of those. So first up, plans, policy, and codes. The first one's kind of an annual one. It's deer management. It's exactly like it sounds. It's the yearly update on deer population, which includes how many are out there, the migration, traffic incidents that may involve deer, and so forth. Second is the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, SWPPP. I love that. It basically, just exactly what it sounds like, is we kind of serve as a citizen panel and conduct public input session pertaining to the city's stormwater pollution prevention program that's required by the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit program. Third on the list is the state of the lakes. It's exactly what it sounds. It includes as in-depth look at the water quality of all the lakes in the city of Burnsville. Then you have the sustainability plan, which obviously involves sustainability. There's lots of it, information on the Burnsville website. We receive an annual sustainability progress report, including an update on climate resiliency efforts from city staff, and recommend changes to it if needed to you guys. And then the Parks Plan Year 1 update. So research and surveys got done, and a new little Parks Plan got kind of rolled forward, and so this will be kind of that first update after Year 1. Okay, so studies and projects. These are topics that will likely require recommendation to the council by the commission in one form or another. The first one is to review of capital improvement plan itself for park development and renovations. The second one, review of the proposed annual work plan with the council, and then receive feedback on how the PNRC can help you guys. And then the third one, recreation services an analysis study that involves learning how citizens actually use the park facilities. And then the fourth one, wayfinding study, to see if more signage or different signage can help park goers kind of find their way around the park system. So then we have the commissioner requested items. The PNRC have a total of 9 requested items this year that we'd like to learn more about. The first 4 that are on here will be presented as a part of existing topics that I've already listed. So the first one is essentially better understanding of the buffer zones that divide the space between the bodies of water. We have many of those, and then private property. So it's usually kind of a 6-foot path, how all that happens and how it's enforced and maintained. The second one is many of our ponds and lakes are connected in some way, so it's the connectivity of those. We'd like a better understanding of how all that works, how they kind of feed into each other, and any potential improvements or maybe oversights that there's been. We have new commissioners. We love new ideas. Next up is the alley magnet water quality. We've been listening to area residents at recent meetings. The PNRC would like more information on the water quality of Alley Magnet Lake itself. Obviously, there's already a State of the Lakes report, which the Natural Resources Specialist, Caleb Ashling, presents to us every year, but we want to do our due diligence and just see if there's potentially anything else that could actually help improve that lake, and just take a deeper dive in that particular lake. And then fourth on that is just a better understanding of how solar energy is being actually used in the park system, if we can utilize it more, if we're utilizing it enough, and how we can potentially proceed in the future. So next up, the following 2 items will be potentially presented to us in written form. The first one are endangered species. Are there any living in Burnsville? Are there, and either plant or animal can be any endangered species. And if so, what are they? How do we protect them? How do we move forward with them? And second up on that list is several residents have actually expressed that they would like some changes to Tennessee Park. They made that inquiry to one of our commissioners, who I believe lives in the area. And so we're just looking for a little more detailed update on the overall plan for that park itself, and to see if that plan can or should be or would be altered in the future with community feedback. This one is still in need of a presentation solution, if there is actually one that exists. And it was just through our discussion on moving forward in climate change and how the city works, and how people migration and different buildings, and just a better understanding of the vulnerability of our natural resources themselves in the event of natural disaster, in the event of extreme drought or fires or what have you. Obviously, a lot of that's been in the news as of late, and it's just maybe worth talking about, and if there's anything additional that can be done. The final category are the tours. The Parks Tour, which I've seen a few of you on over the last couple of years. It's the annual jaunt through the city, allowing both the PNRC, the council here, and city staff to visit parks that are of interest at that time, either because of recently completed projects, studies that are in need of approval, or issues for future consideration of change. The second one, the Waste Management Tour. So the PNRC has toured the recycle facility as well as the water treatment plant over the last 18 months. Been very enlightening, very helpful to kind of see the process and what goes into it and how effective it truly is. It was actually a really cool experience. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking to take that another step forward and look at the waste management and just kind of see how that's run, and maybe we get some new ideas, maybe not. We will see.
That'll be great.
Have you taken, so this would be something we're taking the tour up in the landfill?
The landfill, yes.
Yeah.
And kind of see how that works. And
it would be cool.
It's
a really good deal.
Yeah, I've gone up many times, yeah. Yeah, it's
worth it.
Yeah. Bald Eagle Sanctuary.
Do it in the winter.
Is it really a bald eagle sanctuary?
Yeah, like 54
Not officially,
bald
but
Not
eagles.
officially, but they've taken over.
they're scavengers and they're up there.
They love it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, they live
Yeah.
there.
To know.
Come right
Yeah.
up to the truck.
It's
It's
breathtaking,
a
and
very-
it's also breathtaking.
I bet.
Don't go on a hot day in the summer, I'll tell you that right
go
now.
up in the summertime because it's also, the vista is gorgeous from up there. Cool. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to that. The last one on this list, this predates me. I've been on the council for 18 months. The Rudy Kramer Mining. Mm-hmm. Sounds like we put in a request the last however many years to be able to tour that, just to kind of see it, and they've denied us, so we
Well,
just
it's a lot of changes in the leadership there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we figured we might as well ask again, and
yeah,
worst that can happen is
Yeah.
they say no.
yeah.
All right, so in summary, I've covered all this. We've requested 9 items in total. For those, the first 4 are the part of existing topics that will be in presentations in the coming few months. 2 items will potentially be presented as written report. 1 item still needs a presentation solution if there is one, and then 2 items are being looked at for off-site meetings or as a tour. That's, of course, on top of the Parks Tour, which will happen automatically. Just a couple quick corrections. From the previous work in the plan draft, the presentation date change for the pond and lake connectivity has been moved from May to September. Sounds like it's just something with the present presenter. And then the Tennessee Park, if that's a surprise one, was added from our commission meeting in January. It was the commissioner that added that because of some feedback that she got. And that is it. Any questions?
No questions but comment. Thank you so much for the amount of work that you all are doing. It's very important work. But tell me, how's your experience on the commission? Is it what you expected it to be?
Yes and no. I didn't expect to be sitting at the dais, to be honest with you. I thought I was going to be in some back room. I had some weird thought of that for whatever reason.
It can be uncomfortable and awkward for people who are not familiar with the camera.
True. That's true. Yeah, I have no familiarity with that at all. No idea what you're talking about. It's an interesting way and kind of a first step to kind of see how government runs and just all of the ins and outs. And I find it very interesting. I also basically commits me to saying that I never want to run for anything that's elected. So bless you all.
But why?
So bless you all and all your work, but I will stay a volunteer so I can back away.
Was tonight an influencer on that at all?
Some of that. It's interesting. So we obviously have the meetings first Monday of every month, and we generally don't have anyone attending until suddenly Alley Magnet, and then suddenly there were filled chairs, and I was like, whoa, this is different. So, but all good things, all good discussions. It's nice to be heard, so thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying yes and for your service, and please extend to the rest of the commissioners our gratitude for the service. You guys do good work, and I like what you have in place for your work plan. For you have a very robust work plan.
Yes.
For the year. And I look forward to the tours again with all of you, because that's always interesting, and it's always a nice time to get to know all of the commissioners better.
Yes.
And you have a very diverse group this time.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, very. So, and you have some good discussions. So thank you so much for everyone.
I got a question.
Any other comments? Yes, from Mr. Motz?
Under
Yeah.
your group, more information on the water quality of Lake Alamagnet. Is that, pardon the pun, a dive into the algae bloom and?
Yes, any information possible. It was brought up brought up by several folks in the, I would classify it as the pickleball meeting, that they actually attended. And so we might as well do our due diligence, and they also brought water quality to the forefront. And it's like, okay, well, let's, to your pun, deep dive into that and see what we can do.
I think it's timely because there's a lot we've learned
Yeah.
about that lake and how shallow it is and how weedy and the algae bloom and the quality is a challenge, just like it has been with other lakes. So.
But I'm also happy that you all are going to learn about how water moves through the system, and because, you know, you're going from Crystal Lake, and then you're going to get through all of the ponding system and all the way over to Sunset Pond, and then to the Minnesota River.
It was actually Caleb's presentation this year that he kind of referred to that. He didn't directly go into that sparked all of us. We're like, wait, they're all connected?
Yeah.
Didn't know any of that. And I'm sure it's like public information and it's on our website, but the website is fantastic, but there's so much information you kind of get lost and you don't know where to find it.
Yeah.
So it's good to have that presentation and kind of bring it back around and into the discussion.
I always find all of that underground infrastructure very interesting, because there's more underground than there is above the ground in mileage.
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like, what am I stepping on?
Yeah, yeah. But members of the council, I think they have a very robust plan, and I'm actually looking forward to reading it, because we get your background as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And I'll just mention, I don't know if I should say, my brother-in-law is now the CFO of Kramer Mining, so I'll see if I can pull some strings and get you guys over there.
Ooh, got some connection.
Not the response I was
Putting
expecting.
someone on the spot.
I don't think John's watching this, so.
Well, you could just slyly hint, hey, maybe you should watch.
Yeah, I'll send him the link after the meeting.
There you go.
Yeah.
The tour is actually pretty cool when you
Yeah.
don't mind.
Yeah,
The tour-
really.
It's very interesting
Also breathtaking.
for the bus to go all the way down into that, and to go all the way around. And then to be on the top as well.
Yeah.
It's,
Standing on the rim looking over is
yeah.
breathtaking. Well, it's one of those things where you,
Especially for us flatliners.
it's just interesting. It's obviously drive by it on 35W all the time, and you don't really understand the scope of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that'll also give you a good understanding of the surface water that we're capturing for the surface water plant.
Mm-hmm.
And then also understand the amount of water that comes up and that Kramer has to pump into the Minnesota River, which is about 10 million gallons a day.
10 million gallons a day.
And that's why we capture some of it.
Wow.
Yeah, just think about that.
That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
One day, about 40, 50 years from now, when whatever mining stops, it'll start filling up.
Yeah.
And that takes about 10 years for
And
that to become a
then
lake.
it'll fill up that lake.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It will. It'll be really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm sure I'll be swimming in it, but.
Oh, you know.
Hey,
Okay.
You will.
Yeah. So, members
at
of
least
the
you get
council,
to
what
take
do
us
you want to do? You want to approve the plan
Yes.
Mr. Motz has
I will
presented?
motion to approve.
Second. Oh, sorry.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Great
And
job.
motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I know you have to get up early.
Yeah.
So,
Going home and going to bed.
yeah, I'm sorry we let you.
That's okay.
we-
Important discussions to be had.
Yeah.
Just as a side note, for taller people, I think you gotta move that camera up a little bit. Cause if you look at the, refer to the other camera, you just see my head, the back of my head.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Our staff is listening, so, and so.
Little
good-
pointer.
You can still block
feedback
Kara.
from someone who works with, in the front of the camera and see all the things.
You
on a
notice those
daily
details.
People ruin it for everything.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
so
much.
we'll let you go home and go to bed because you get up early.
Yes.
We know your schedule, those of
Yeah.
us who watch you early
Right.
in the morning.
I appreciate it. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is 5D, and this is to adopt the amendments to the city's policies related to purchasing and contracting authority. And presenting is our Deputy City Manager, CFO, Jennifer Rhodey.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Tonight in front of you, we have some proposed amendments to purchasing and authority related policies. Just a little background. In 2023, we noted some financial and compliance issues around our purchasing and contracting. At that time, staff developed and implemented a corrective action plan. And as part of that plan, the city attorney's office conducted a legal compliance review and presented findings at the August 27th work session. At that time, we reviewed some of the more critical contracting and purchasing policy amendments, and those were adopted on September 3rd. And additional policy amendments were recommended at that time, and these are those policies. These are those kind of final purchasing and authority kind of adjacent or related policies that we reviewed. There's 8 existing policies that we've proposed amendments to, and we are also proposing an additional gifts and donations policy, as well as we also reviewed consent agenda guidelines at that time too. It might be worth noting, there are a couple policies that have some significant changes, and in particular one, the partner consultant review, but the remaining policies are mostly minor changes at this time. We reviewed, a group of staff reviewed and proposed the changes. The city attorney also reviewed our proposed policy changes. The first item is partner consultant review. This policy was previously named professional services selection and retention. What we did with this is the policy that had the most changes, and what we did here is we did have a consultant pool that was created under this policy. We eliminated that consultant pool, as well as the idea of registered consultants. This part of the policy was really at the heart of some of those purchasing issues we noted in 2023. So just to eliminate confusion, we eliminated that portion. We also, this policy also had review of all consultants. What the new policy does is it really defines what partner consultants are and establishes an ongoing annual review process for partner consultants, those that we have long-term ongoing relationships with, auditors, financial consultants, attorneys, and the results of those review will come to the council annually as a written report. It might also be worth knowing that all consultant contracts currently and always need to follow city purchasing policy guidelines, as well as statutory guidelines around purchasing and contracting. The next policy that we're going to talk about is public purpose expenditures. There were some updates and clarifications on language. The most significant changes aligned employee recognition programs, including retirement programs, with the current program. It also eliminated the use of gift cards. The state auditor has come out with the opinion that says there really isn't any authority for cities to use gift cards to expend public funds. So we wanted to eliminate that from this part of the policy. It also had, we also added some additional clarification around city-paid meals and refreshments, and for non-city or other special events, for special city events, and clarified some non-city and employee-sponsored fundraisers as not part of those special events. Cash control. For this policy, we are proposing removing this policy and consolidating this with our financial management policy, so that policies for controls and safeguards around cash as well as revenues. We already have some policies in our financial management policies, and really consolidating those all together. It also, this current policy also talked about reviewing sources of revenue, and we already do that around the budget and audit process. We also address budgeting and revenue recognition as part of our financial management policy. So we'll combine those two. Paying city claims. The proposed change to this really adds claims list detail to council agenda backgrounds in the biweekly claims approval process. That actually has already been implemented, so this is really following up with the policy amendment to match what we are currently doing. The electronic signing policy, this policy just had minor updates and some clarifications around language and authority. Purchasing ethics, this really deals with any conflicts of interest employees might have, especially when they're doing purchasing. There was no change to this policy, just some updates again around language. The bidding policy, this had a couple minor changes, updates and clarifications on language. It also clarified council approval of contracts that go out to bid. Finally, the development escrow. This really deals with the monitoring of escrow funds that come into the city. What we did, it did have a clause in there that talked about consultative monitoring expenses. We removed that. City staff maintains those escrow balances and also tracks those funds as well as the expenditure of those funds. So we took that part out. The gifts and donations policy, this is the new policy that we are proposing. One of the things it does, it requires all gifts and donations to be accepted by the city council. It clarifies the acceptance of donations for wellness and community relationship building, as well as defines a process for acceptance of use and use of gift cards. And so sometimes the city does receive gift cards that we're just not able to redirect at the time, and it just authorizes a process to account for those and expend those funds on authorized public purpose expenditures. We looked at the consent agenda guidelines. We just had some minor updates and clarification of language in those guidelines. And that was the final area we reviewed. So the full policies were attached to the background. Next steps, really, this is kind of the final step on the policy review part of the corrective action. Next steps for us, we do plan a full policy and procedures manual update this coming year. And so staff will be looking at all policies, reviewing those for content, also updating the language and bringing it into a more plain language and easier to read and understand. So that's our next step, which will be ongoing throughout this year. And as part of that, we'll take a look at, what are council policies and what are more administrative type policies, and kind of separate those two types of policies. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions for CFO Rhodey?
No, a lot of cleaning up.
Yeah, good work. It was a lot of work, and thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, we were all pushed into really doing this review after we did the audit. And so thank you for doing all of that work. Really appreciate it. Okay, so members of the council, We're asked to adopt the amendments to the city policies related to purchasing and contracting authority.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and a motion carries. Thank you so much, Deputy City Manager, CFO Rhodey. Thank you. Okay, members of the council, there are no other items to come before us this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay, and a motion carries. Good night, and thank you for being with us.